Before humans existed, before the first cities and civilizations were built, there was another version of the world that once existed. A planet full of gigantic creatures, animals that were extremely large, incredibly heavy, and sometimes almost impossible to believe if not for the fossils they left behind. For millions of years, giant mammals lived in the forests, grasslands, and cold regions of ancient Earth. But as the climate changed and the presence of humans gradually expanded, they disappeared one by one. And among the most astonishing creatures discovered by science were not dinosaurs, but ancient mammals that once truly lived on our planet. One of them was a gigantic primate that once roamed the forests of Asia, Gigantopithecus blacki. Because of its size, it was like a version of a gorilla made for a prehistoric world. According to studies by paleontologists, this creature lived in parts of China and Southeast Asia, hundreds of thousands of years before modern civilization emerged. Surprisingly, a complete skeleton has not yet been found until now. Researchers have only unearthed jaws and teeth, but those are enough to understand how big it was. Based on the analysis of the fossil teeth, its molars are larger compared to those of the modern gorilla. Because of this, it is estimated that it could reach almost 3 meters when standing fully upright, and its weight could possibly reach several hundred kilos. But even though it was extremely large, it was not a fierce hunter. Gigantopithecus is believed to have been a herbivore. It ate bamboo, fruits, roots, and other plants in the dense rainforests back then. It was like a giant version of an orangutan or gorilla that lived in a wilder and harsher environment. But as time passed, the world around it changed. The dense forest gradually shrank and disappeared. It was replaced by a drier environment and grasslands. This happened because of climate change in ancient times, and along with the disappearance of the rainforest, their main source of food also vanished. According to studies published by scientists in China and Australia, there is evidence in its fossil teeth showing that the diet of Gigantopithecus changed before it completely disappeared. Instead of soft plants, it was forced to eat tougher, harder materials like bark and tough plant fibers. And for such a gigantic animal, this situation was dangerous. When a species' diet is too specialized, it becomes harder for it to survive when the environment changes. In the end, it completely disappeared hundreds of thousands of years ago, and until now, it remains a mystery of the prehistoric world. But if you think this is where the story of the giant mammals ends, the next part gets even worse. In the ancient Americas, there was a creature that seemed to be taken straight out of a fantasy movie, the Megatherium, more commonly known as the giant ground sloth. When we hear the word sloth, we usually think of a slow and small animal hanging from a tree. But the Megatherium was the opposite of that. It was a gigantic mammal that could stand almost as tall as a 2-story house when it was up on its hind legs. It lived in South America during the Pleistocene era, a time when many giant animals still existed on Earth. It was not a fast runner. It was also not a predator like the saber-toothed cat. But its size and strength were enough to make it one of the most dominant herbivores of its time. It had very long claws that could reach almost a foot in length. It used these to pull down branches and leaves from trees. It's also possible that it used them for defense against fierce animals back then. And there's another baffling mystery about it. In Brazil and other parts of South America, enormous ancient tunnels have been discovered with claw marks on the walls. According to some archaeologists and geologists, these may have been made by giant ground sloths like the Megatherium or other large relatives. Some of these tunnels are so long and so large that they couldn't have been just ordinary burrows. But until now, scientists are still not sure why they made these. Is it possible that these served as shelters from the heat or protection from predators? Or maybe it's part of their behavior that we still don't fully understand. And like many giant mammals during the Ice Age, their time also came to an end. According to researchers, climate change was a major factor after the end of the last Ice Age. As the world warmed, the ecosystem that depended on them also changed. At the same time, modern humans also began to spread to different parts of the Americas. Because of this, many scientists believe that A combination of environmental change and human hunting pressure is one of the reasons for the disappearance of the Megatherium and other megafauna. But there was another creature during that time that also seemed almost impossible to be real. Imagine an armadillo. Now make it bigger until it's almost the size of a small car. That's the Glyptodon, a gigantic armored mammal covered with a thick shell like a living tank from the ancient world. Its body is protected by tough bony armor made up of thousands of tiny plates. And because of its incredible toughness, only a few can attack it directly. There are also studies showing that ancient people used its shells as temporary shelters or protection against the elements after the animal died. And here we can see even more how different the world of prehistoric Earth was. A time when there were giant apes in Asia, enormous sloths in the Americas, and armored mammals that seemed made for science fiction. But no matter how big they were, how strong they were, and how long they lived on the planet, they still couldn't overcome the changes in the world. And now, all that's left of them are fossils, scratch marks on rocks and bones that quietly tell the story of a world long gone. One of the most unique mammals lived during the Ice Age. Its entire body was covered with extremely tough armor, like a built-in shield against danger. This wasn't just ordinary skin. Its shell was made up of thousands of tough bone plates called osteoderms. It's almost the same kind of protection you see in modern armadillos and tortoises today. But with the Glyptodon, the size was on a whole different level. Fossils found in South America show that some of them grew over 3 meters long. Because of their massive size and weight, they were like slow but almost unstoppable tanks of the prehistoric world. In 2020, a farmer discovered 4 Glyptodon shells in Argentina while working on his land. When researchers saw the fossil, it became even clearer just how big these animals really were when they were alive. The Glyptodon lived in the vast grasslands and forests of the Americas. It was a herbivore, and it used its strong legs and claws to dig and search for plants and roots to eat. But even though it had thick armor, that didn't mean it was safe from all dangers. Because at the same time, there was another giant creature roaming South America, and it was a predator, Indricotherium, better known as the giant short-faced bear. If the modern grizzly bear is already terrifying, this ancient monster was even more formidable. According to some studies, it could possibly weigh over 1,000 kilos and could reach more than 3 meters tall when standing on its hind legs. This is one of the largest bears identified by science. It had large paws, a thick body, and extremely powerful jaws. It was truly built to dominate the food chain of prehistoric South America. Scientists are still not completely sure how aggressive it was as a hunter, but many researchers believe it could. It was capable of taking down the large animals of its time. Possibly included among its prey were young Glyptodon and other giant mammals of the Ice Age, and because of its size, only a few could even try to attack it. But like other giant mammals of the Pleistocene epoch, Indricotherium also met its downfall. As Earth's climate changed after the last ice age, the ecosystem that supported large animals gradually changed as well. Some prey species disappeared, habitats shrank, and at the same time, ancient humans expanded their range in the Americas. Over time, the giant mammals that once dominated that land disappeared one by one, including one of the largest bears ever to walk the earth. But the story of the giant creatures of the ancient world doesn't end here, because there was another mammal during the Pleistocene that is even harder to believe when compared to the animals alive today. During the Ice Age, one of the largest mammals on Earth was the steppe mammoth. It was bigger than the modern elephant, reaching almost 4 meters in height and weighing up to 12 tons. It had very long curved tusks that were used for digging for food and for defense against predators. It lived in the cold grasslands of Europe and Asia, where it fed on grass and low-lying plants. According to scientists, it was also a major part of the ecosystem back then because it helped shape the grasslands as it roamed across vast areas. But as the climate changed after the Ice Age and human hunting expanded, The steppe mammoth gradually disappeared until it became extinct. But even more astonishing than that is the Indricotherium, one of the largest land mammals that ever lived on Earth. It was a giant herbivore that resembled a rhino but had no horn. It could reach almost 6 meters in height and weigh up to 20 tons. Because of its long neck, it could reach tall trees to eat leaves. It lived in Central Asia millions of years before the mammoths. Until now, it is still a mystery to scientists why Indricotherium completely disappeared from the Earth. There is still no exact answer, but many researchers believe that climate change and the gradual change in vegetation in its habitat had a significant impact. As the environment changed millions of years ago, it is also possible that the forests which served as its food source became smaller. And for a very large herbivore that needs to eat a huge amount of plants every day to survive, the loss of enough food is a big problem. While there were giant herbivores roaming the prehistoric world, there were also predators ready to attack large animals. One of the most mysterious carnivorous mammals identified by science is Andrewsarchus. It is known as one of the largest land mammals that lived in ancient times. Surprisingly, almost everything we know about it is mainly based on a single fossil skull. Its massive skull was discovered in Mongolia in the early 20th century, and scientists were immediately astonished by its enormous size. Its skull measures over 80 centimeters long, which is larger than most modern predators today. Because of this, it is believed to have had an extremely powerful bite, capable of crushing flesh and the bones of large prey. But even though Andrewsarchus is famous in prehistoric history, its true appearance is still a mystery. Because only a few fossils have been found, scientists are still not sure if it resembled a giant wolf, hyena, wild boar, or another type of ancient mammal. Researchers also have different reconstructions of its body and how it hunted. But no matter how big and strong they were, these giant mammals still could not survive the changes in the world. As the climate, ecosystems, and competition in nature changed, the giant creatures that once ruled prehistoric Earth gradually disappeared one by one. And now all that remains of them are fossils, ancient bones, and mysteries that science is still trying to solve. And as scientists discover more fossils, we get to see just how harsh and unique prehistoric Earth really was. From the giant rodent Joseph Artigasia to the bear dog Amphitryon and the giant wombat Diprotodon, each creature is proof that giants once ruled the planet. And in the oceans, there were giant whales like Perseidus colossus, which may have been one of the heaviest mammals to ever live on Earth. But no matter how big and strong they were, none of them survived climate change, habitat loss, and the passage of time. And now all that's left of them are fossils and mysteries that science is still trying to solve. Because before the world of humans began, other giants first ruled the Earth